in a village laden with drought, famine, and dying villagers. Rain falls as the prefecture is filled with the cries of a woman trying to give birth. While her husband waits outside, the man closes his eyes and remembers visiting the temple in the hills. What seems like a man going for daily prayers soon reveals to be a massacre of guards and priests in the temple's vicinity. He soon makes his way to the Hall of Hell, where he is greeted by the old main priest. The priest acts as if his action is expected, talking about how the man is there to denounce God and Buddha in favor of the 12 demons. After a bit of a futile attempt to stop him, the man kills the priest, who thanks him for salvation. The man begins his deal and reveals himself to be Daigo Kagemitsu, the governor of Ishikawa, and talks about the disaster taking place in his land, but he is worried more regarding his loss of power. Daigo then asks for the protection of his land and the power to rule over in exchange for anything of his. Suddenly, lightning strikes, and the demons mark a cross on his forehead to seal the deal. At present, Daigo's heir finally gives birth, but suddenly lightning strikes again, this time on the baby, which causes some of the midwives to run away. Daigo immediately runs inside and finds out he has a son, but he takes too much after him. He remembers that the reason his child is in a state of perpetual ugliness is due to the deal, which makes him happy as his wish is fulfilled. Daigo then orders his son's execution to the midwife as he reminds him of the ugliness inside him, but sees that the Buddha's statue had sacrificed its head, which makes him wary. Totally not a spoiler, of course. A demon is awakened as the old midwife takes the ugly baby to the river to drown him. But as she tries to drown him, she suddenly feels merciful and floats him down the river in a boat nearby. Suddenly, the demon appears and devours the bit, who weirdly gives no reaction upon seeing the demon meme of old Rose from Titanic saying, "It's been 84 years. A blind monk also happens to be nearby, and he uses his spidey sense to track and kill the demon with a swipe from his customized shamisen. The demon should learn not to mess with anime old guys. He also senses the ugliness from the boat, but lets him be as he's not evil. 16 years pass and mankind's favorite game, war and massacre, is still taking place. A priest is praying for the departed souls, but he sees Jukai, the doctor who has a weird fetish of attaching prosthetics to the dead bodies, although he claims that he does that to not waste away his creations. Meanwhile, a weird guy is passing by the city, who is pointed out to be wearing a mask by everyone he meets. In the city, we see a kid, Dororo, who's a student at Tate University, hustling out some goods. But he is stopped by some goons, who accuse him of stealing their stuff. The goons try to beat him up, but he manages to escape them with the help of some shit she flinged their way. He stops by the river but gets distracted by a puppy, which in turn causes the goon to get to him. They beat the ever-living shit out of him, but he does not give up. Must be a John Cena fan. Instead, he throws rocks at the leader, popping his eyes and making him intolerant of his shit before deciding to kill him. During the procession, the masked guy from earlier also arrives there. The goons try to negotiate with him, but Dororo explains how he is not looking at them but somewhere else. A garbage patch floats nearby as Mr. Mask looks at it intently, but the goons try to brush it off. But suddenly the patch turns out to be a demon, which catches and eats the goons in an instant. The blob also catches Dororo for dessert, but Mr. Mask suddenly whips out his blade hidden inside his arms. He manages to defeat the demon with the help of his hidden blades, and Dororo finds out that he cannot see or hear as he reattaches his limbs. As he begins to yap about how cool he is, suddenly his skin begins to appear on his face. I mean, the audience already knows who Mr. Mask is at this point. Also, Lord Daigo is on his highest alert as he sees lightning strike the temple, which reminds him of his mark. Worried, Daigo returns to the halls, but he is shocked to see one of the statues split open by the lightning from earlier, which shocks him, while a landslide occurs close to the hall. At his prefecture, he and his wife have a new child, Tahamaru, who exclaims about making his sick mother stronger from the dove he hunted. Daigo's wife, though, is worried about the son they killed. Looking at the headless statue, Jukai is still seen on the battlefield, but it seems he actually knows Mr. Mask or Hyakimaru, as he puts on a similar mask to the dead body. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru is still in shock due to his new face as Dororo questions if he is a human. The Spider-Man priest meets with a demon trying to make a deal at the crossroads. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru is being followed by Dororo, who yaps about how cool he is. Despite not hearing him, he could sense the blabbering, which makes him hungry. The two eat some berries before Hyakimaru catches some fish with his arm blade. As he tries to raw dog the fish, Dororo stops him and teaches him about cooking. Hyakkimaru then shows that he also has a spidey sense to sense the color of the soul besides having superhuman prowess, that is, he's basically a blind Spider-Man. He also allows Dororo to be close to him as he possesses no male intent but is surprised to see him not leave. As Jukai still remains on the battlefield attaching prosthetics to the dead, as if he's trying to repent for something, Dororo tries to converse with Hyakkimaru to no avail. But the demon from earlier watches the village. The next day, Hyakkimaru's fishing session is interrupted as Dororo forces a business proposition on him to kill a demon and rescue the villagers haunted by it. The two get to the rich village, and after Dororo's negotiation skills, the hesitant villagers' chief offers to give them a shot in return for payment and supper, which gets Dororo very excited. After supper, the duo are resting in the shed talking about the village's suspicious wealth, but are interrupted by the weird demon and his bell. Dororo tries to get Hyakkimaru to fight it, but suspiciously, the demon just asks a question but does no harm and leaves. The leader also pops out with a slight concern on his face. The next morning, the two are taken to meet the village priestess, Bandai, who is in no state of movement. As Dororo flatters her beauty, Hyakkimaru senses her soul and whips out his blade, but they get thrown to the dungeon for attempted murder. Dororo begins to yell at Hyakkimaru, but is interrupted by Spider-Man's Spider-Man theme. The priest was also captured when he arrived at the village to slay the demon. He then explains to Dororo how similar he is to Hyakkimaru, both being the Japanese variant of Spider-Man. But suddenly the light goes out, alerting everyone, and Hyakkimaru kills a demon that popped out in the well. The priest takes a panicked Dororo along with him, escaping through the same well and arriving at the doors of Bandai's room. Bandai still acts like she is suffering from Tyrone's backshots, but the priest describes how her soul is murky red, the worst soul color. Bandai then regrets not eating them before revealing herself as my mother-in-law. Hyakkimaru, who's blind as a bat, still could not bear Bandai's ugliness, lashing out and slashing its eyes. But the chief interrupts before he can finish her, allowing her to escape. The priest and Dororo then confront him, and he tells them how she would have eaten the villagers if they had not led travelers to her, trying to do the same with the main crew. But they assure him that they can slay and relieve them of her. Bandai and Hyakkimaru fight it out in the bamboo forest, where the demon tries to take advantage of her surroundings. Suddenly, the bell demon appears and distracts her, which allows him to deal the final blow. Bandai gets back to her human form, but she begins to talk cryptically about getting back, while transforming into another form. The chief and the crew arrive, and he sees his Lady Bandai finally get killed. The bell demon reappears and Dororo tries to get him, but he sees riches buried in the sand. The priest makes him confess that the coins belong to the first traveler they offered to Bandai and how they got rich from these offerings. Dororo reprimands him by telling him how they're worse than the monsters, but the bell rings again. The bell carried by the demon belonged to the traveler they sacrificed, which traumatizes the chief. He actually wanted them to slay that demon, but they let him be as a punishment. As they get out of the forest, Dororo apologizes for not knowing about Bandai, but the priest consoles him for getting bamboozled. He explains how she looked like his dead mom and gets touched by Hyakkimaru like a 2024 YouTuber seeing a minor, but he sensed a disturbance in his soul and tried to console him. He brushes him off, and then Hyakkimaru writes his name in the sand, letting them know his name. The priest is then assured of their previous meeting when he was an ugly child, happy that what he sensed back then was true. Meanwhile, his scumbag father, Daigo, is worried about getting his ass kicked by the Sakai clan, who he believed were his allies. But instead of strategizing, he asks his men to check the temple, where another statue is destroyed. Hyakkimaru struggles as he gets another one of his organs back, which might be his sense of pain, that is his nerves, worrying both the priest and Dororo. A long time ago, the battlefield was filled with the bodies of dead soldiers as their blood soaked the soil. A soldier tries to run away but is captured by Jukai, whose favorite movie, The Passion of Christ, was surpassed at the box office by Deadpool vs. Wolverine. So, Jukai, after learning that the opposition was Deadpool fans, crucified them with nails and hammers while allowing them to rot away. As he amputates another enemy soldier to warn the rebellion, Jukai's wife runs towards him to stop him, but she gets stabbed in the back by a fellow soldier and then ordered to be crucified. Seeing her dead body, regret creeps into his body, making him question everything, and starts crying. Jukai then suddenly tries to ice guy himself by jumping off a nearby cliff. But instead of becoming the make of an ice guy, Jukai becomes the doctor of a village, providing villagers with prosthetics, including his intern, Koname, who he helped when he was a little orphan. As the villagers and his intern praise him in equivalence to Buddha, they do not know his bloody past. Talking about his past, Koname learns about it from a patient's mother, while he walks her home after her son's treatment. He confronts Jukai, who tells him everything including his days under the Tyrant Lord, how he learned about prosthetics, and trying to atone for his sins. But Koname reveals that his father was killed in that war, instead of going to buy milk before lunging towards Jukai for the kill. Jukai, instead of pleading for his life, asks him to let him live until he fulfills the kid's treatment. But Koname leaves him and his prosthetic after the treatment, telling him how he can never be his salvation, instead of killing him. After breaking down due to Koname's departure, Jukai goes for a walk but trips before getting awakened by a boat. Inside, he sees something similar to a lady's tampon Hyakkimaru that shocks him by being alive despite its condition, before taking it under his wings with teary eyes. Meanwhile, Daigo is elated to see his new child, but his wife is still worried about her older son, looking at the headless statue. 6 years pass by and the kid, now grown up and chock full of Jukai's prosthetics, is moving around the forest and helping Jukai with errands. Okay, but is everyone thinking what I'm thinking? Jukai also thinks of him as his new reason for living, talking about his will to survive despite his conditions. He then names him as Hyakkimaru, advising him not to succumb to demons and other terrifying entities. Later, Hyakkimaru is on his usual stroll in the forest, but gets attacked by a Pokemon. He dodges its attacks, but Jukai's timely intervention saves him. In the evening, they see more monsters hidden in their home as Jukai believes that they must be after Hyakkimaru. A training montage follows with scenes of Hyakkimaru kicking tons of monsters' asses, while a sneak peek of his family, including the bonding of his scumbag dad and his brother, Tahomaru, is also shown. A bloody Hyakkimaru returns from his battle as Jukai tends to his wounds. He then describes how Hyakkimaru feels no pain and remorse, knowing only how to kill before questioning his decision regarding training him. But he again risks his life to kill the alien from Alien vs. Predators, worrying Jukai again, but this time, he shocks him by growing a leg out of nowhere. As lightning strikes the temple again, destroying a demon statue, Jukai talks about making deals with demons, pointing out that Hyakkimaru may also have been a part of such deals as he upgrades him with blades. Some days pass and Hyakkimaru is let go by Jukai, who believes that he has a purpose. As he leaves, Jukai gives him his medallion back, but he caresses him, which makes him tearful, and hugs him as a heartfelt farewell. At present, the priest and Dororo talk about how Hyakkimaru's body parts were dealt with by someone with demons in exchange for something. As they are chatting, Hyakkimaru walks on the fire to see that he can feel pain now, much to Dororo's disapproval of his method. Meanwhile, Jukai is seen on a battlefield, praying as he yet again has attached prosthetics to dead soldiers. A battlefield is riddled with POWs as they're put in line for execution under high command. One of the executioners gets hesitant and pleads with the high command, but gets offered a sword, through which he executes the prisoner. Hyakkimaru is getting wet in the rain as a girl Asushi tries to call him, but Dororo interferes and describes his condition. He then rizzes the girl, who's there to pray for her brother, but gets cock-blocked by someone injured. As Hyakkimaru runs off after sensing something evil, Dororo also runs after him to find a trail of dead bodies. Suddenly, they're attacked by a white-haired bastard with a supernatural sword who looks like Herbert from Family Guy with hair. Dororo asks him about his deed, but the guy just yaps about his sword being thirsty before engaging in a duel with Hyakkimaru. He gets cornered by the swordsman, who manages to slash his face, but uses his prosthetic leg to ward him off, throwing him off the cliff. Dororo arrives there to give him his arm, and while searching for his leg, he sees the sword as well. As he tries to get the leg back, he accidentally gets possessed by the sword. Asushi also gets to the foot of the cliff while searching for the boys, but is shocked to see her brother, the white-haired swordsman. Hyakkimaru though senses that the sword has been taken out from his leg during his search for Dororo. Asushi reunites with her brother, who is afraid that the sword will return to him. Meanwhile, Dororo is struggling for control with the cursed sword, almost killing some passerby before giving up and letting the sword control him. As Hyakkimaru senses the sword's presence, Asushi talks about their past with her brother, including their parents and him becoming a soldier before showing him the paper crane, but she feels that her brother has changed, remembering how he killed the passers-by near the cliff. Dororo, now dubbed the Phantom Killer, is dragged to the village where he's confronted by a battle-ready Hyakkimaru. Asushi pleads with her brother to return home with her, but Tanasuke, her older brother, remembers his time in the army as an executioner from earlier. He remembers how he executed his fellow comrade and other pals with the cursed sword, Nairu, given to him by his chief, before killing him as well to quench its thirst. But he went on a killing spree as the sword seemed not to be satisfied, similar to Minecraft YouTubers on their Discord. At present, Tanasuke tries to get the sword back despite his sister's pleading as Dororo is being attacked by Hyakimaru. Hyakimaru manages to get rid of the sword from Dororo, but Tanasuke recaptures it and reignites their duel after questioning why he was not killed. The two engage in a fierce dance of death which alerts Asushi, who sees that her brother has created new paper cranes. She rushes out to plead for his life, but Hyakimaru slashes him fatally, killing him and the sword. Asushi realizes her brother's sacrifice, crying while holding his lifeless hand. Hyakimaru begins to frolic again as he gets his ears back and allows him to hear for the first time. Another statue gets taken out as Daigo's anxiety worsens after hearing that the midwife, who was assigned the task of killing his child, was nowhere to be found by his soldiers. Alright, that's all for part 1, folks. Make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel to get notified of later parts for this anime as well as other fun anime content.